Senator Bob Menendez and his wife Nadine are asking a federal judge to give them separate trials for the corruption charges they face in New York. Their attorneys argue the couple would be forced to testify against each other under a joint trial. Menendez and his wife were each charged last fall with aiding 3 New Jersey businessmen in exchange for cash, gold bars, and a luxury car. Senator Menendez is also accused of acting as a foreign agent while serving as the powerful chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. All have pleaded not guilty to the charges. But how will this request for separate trials affect the case? I'm joined by Chris Ghermissione. He's the former Assistant U.S. Attorney for New Jersey to explain. Chris Ghermissione, always good to have you on the show. So when looking at this request, is it unusual for a husband and wife to put it out on these grounds that they may possibly be sharing confidential information?
I don't think it's unusual. I've seen it on repeated occasions. What is unusual is the possibility, I think, of the court actually granting it, because the allegations are that Senator and Mrs. Menendez are involved in a criminal conspiracy that they mutually gain from. And the federal system really favors joint trials for people indicted together to promote efficiency and to serve the interest of justice by preventing inconsistent verdicts in 2 separate trials.
Isn't there a risk, though, Chris, that one may end up testifying against the other, which and really goes against their constitutional rights since they are married?
There is a risk to that regard, and that's what the defense raised in their motion. And they found some favorable case law out of the Third Circuit. The case is charged out of the Second Circuit. So it is possible. I mean, we'll see what a court does. They have to respond 14 days from when they filed. But there's a crime fraud exception to anybody who's claiming that marital communications privilege, the adverse testimonial privilege, applies. And the theory behind that is if 2 people are involved that are married are involved in some kind of criminal conspiracy or activity, that falls outside of the privacy of marriage, and therefore the privilege would not apply. So I anticipate that's what the government's response will be. And I also note that the period of the conspiracy charge in this preceding indictment is January 2018 through June of 2022. So this obviously only applies to the communications from when they were married forward, which I think is October 2020. So it'll be interesting to see how the court resolves it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point in thinking about how likely it is and whether or not prosecutors would be amenable to essentially trying a case twice, because that's what would happen here if these end up being split, no?
It would be, and again, the federal system historically favors avoiding that very problem, because for inefficiency reasons, for inconvenience of multiple trials, expenses. It's also important to note, I think, here what you see in the moving papers is they say words to the effect of that Senator Menendez may testify. And in the case law that I've read, speculation to make a motion like this is oftentimes not enough. It has to be demonstrated that there's actual prejudice that's going to outweigh the expense and inconvenience of separate trials. And they have to make a showing on how their anticipated defense would be specifically prejudiced. It has to be clear and substantial, resulting in a manifestly unfair trial. So I didn't see that in the moving papers. I suspect you might see that point be exploited and raised in the government's response.
Yeah, certainly will be raised. I'd have to agree with you there. Okay, the senator's lawyers, they're also asking for this case or trial, if it goes to trial, to be moved to New Jersey. What's the likelihood there? And what are the potential implications for prosecutors if it comes to the Jersey side?
Well, it's generally difficult to transfer venue again unless you can show some kind of prejudice similar to what we're talking about now, which I don't, to me personally, doesn't make a lot of sense because the jurisdictions are so close together. They share the same media markets. So I don't know what the change in venue would gain them. It'd be a different story if they were trying to transfer, somewhere down in the Southwest. But again, we're talking about a federal senator here who has some name recognition, through his role and unfortunately through past charges that were, highly covered in the media in the past. So I'd anticipate that'd be an uphill battle for the defense.
Chris Ghermissione is a former Assistant U.S. Attorney for New Jersey. Chris, thank you so much.
Of course, good to see you again. Take care.